Simone Sterling adjusted her hair nervously as she looked up at the huge departure board in Atlanta Airport. Her flight to Phuket was delayed by half an hour, but that did not matter. What mattered was the surprise. For weeks she had been planning it. Her husband, Ronnie, was turning 45 in 3 days. She wanted to be there early, to appear in front of him with their daughter Aaliyah and say, "Happy birthday, darling." She pictured his face when he opened the villa door and saw them. That thought alone made her smile. "Mom, are you sure Dad will be happy?" Aaliyah asked, not lifting her eyes from the laptop on her knees. She was 15, serious for her age, smart beyond words, always typing lines of code no one else understood. "Of course he would be happy, baby," Simone said gently. "He misses us so much." Aaliyah nodded, but her eyes had a strange shine. Simone didn't notice. Her heart was full of excitement. 18 years of marriage had not changed how she felt. Ronnie was still the man who could make her feel safe with one smile. He was tall, handsome, confident. Everyone respected him. He owned a company that built luxury houses. In interviews, he always talked about family. "Family is the foundation of everything," he used to say. "My wife, Simone, is my rock, and my daughter Aaliyah gives meaning to my life." Simone believed him. She had given him everything. After they married, she left her job in literature and devoted herself to family life. She managed the home, helped him with paperwork, and was always there when he came back tired. She thought she knew her husband completely. The loudspeaker called her flight. She held Aaliyah's hand and walked toward the gate, heart racing. In her purse lay a small box with a Rolex watch. Ronnie had admired that watch in a store window once, whispering, "Maybe someday." She had spent her savings on it. It was expensive, but she wanted his eyes to light up when he saw it. During the long flight, Simone dreamed of beaches, dinners, and laughter. Aaliyah kept typing quietly, her fingers moving fast. When Simone asked what she was working on, the girl replied, "A surprise for Dad." Her voice sounded flat, almost cold. Simone thought it was teenage moodiness and went back to her dreams. After 12 long hours, they landed in Thailand. The air was warm and heavy with the smell of flowers. Aaliyah looked out the window, her face pale. "Mom," she said softly, "no matter what happens, remember that I love you." Simone laughed uneasily. "What do you mean, honey?" "Nothing, Mom." They got into a taxi. The driver, a cheerful Thai man named Sunchai, chatted in English, telling them about the island. Simone loved the palm trees and bright houses. It felt like paradise. Aaliyah said little, her eyes on her phone, deleting messages as soon as they appeared. After an hour, they reached the villa. It was beautiful beyond words. White walls, red roof, palm trees around, the sea shining behind it. Simone's heart swelled with happiness. "Your dad really outdid himself this time," she said. "Yes, Mom," Aaliyah whispered. "He'll be very surprised." They entered the cool living room. The air smelled of jasmine and something else, a faint trace of men's cologne she knew well. Ronnie's. On the table lay 2 empty wine glasses and a bottle of champagne. Simone smiled. "Looks like Dad had some clients over. You know how he likes to impress them." Aaliyah's face tightened. She didn't reply. The villa was quiet, only the hum of air conditioning and the sound of the ocean outside. Simone climbed the stairs toward the master bedroom. Aaliyah followed, clutching her phone. On the steps lay a pair of red, high-heeled shoes. Simone picked them up. They were expensive and elegant, but not hers. "Strange," she murmured. "I don't wear this size." "Mom," Aaliyah said softly, "maybe you shouldn't go up there." "Why not?" "Please just call Dad first." But Simone was already moving down the hall. On the floor lay a silk blouse, clearly a woman's. Next to it were Ronnie's jeans. Her heart began to pound. She pushed the bedroom door open. What she saw froze her. Ronnie was lying half asleep on the bed, hair messy, chest bare. And sitting beside him, in sea-green silk pajamas, was a woman Simone knew all too well, her sister, Carissa. Time stopped. Simone felt the ground vanish beneath her. Her breath caught. Her head rang. The man she had trusted for 18 years, and the sister she had loved since childhood together. Carissa turned, her face white as chalk. "Sim," she whispered. Ronnie sat up, speechless. Simone couldn't move. Her daughter stood behind her, silent, watching. 18 years of marriage destroyed in one heartbeat. Ronnie tried to speak, but no words came. Carissa covered her face. Simone's vision blurred, but one thought repeated in her head. How long? She took a shaky step back. "Aaliyah," she said in a broken voice, "let's go." They left the room, walked down the stairs, and out into the sunlight. Simone's hands trembled as she called a taxi. She did not look back. In the car, tears poured down her face. Aaliyah held her silently. The ride to the hotel felt endless. Every image in Simone's mind shattered. Ronnie's smile, his promises, their family dinners. Everything was a lie. When they reached the hotel, she sat on the bed, staring at the wall. Her world had collapsed. Aaliyah opened her laptop. Her fingers began to type quickly. Simone didn't notice at first, but the clicking never stopped. "Sweetheart," she whispered, "what are you doing?" "Finishing something, Mom," Aaliyah said without looking up. "Something that will make things right." Simone turned to her daughter, confused. "What do you mean?" Aaliyah's eyes were calm, too calm for a child. "I already knew, Mom. I knew for weeks." Simone stared at her, shocked. "Knew what?" "That Dad and Aunt Carissa were seeing each other." The words hit like another blow. "How could you possibly know that?" Aaliyah turned the laptop toward her. On the screen were maps, charts, and colored lines. "I analyzed their digital footprints," she said softly. "Grandpa Paul taught me how to collect open data. I tracked their posts, photos, and locations. I compared timestamps, check-ins, likes. The math doesn't lie." Simone blinked, trying to understand. "You mean you've been spying on them?" "Not spying. Analyzing public data. Everything they posted was open. Every like, every comment, every place they tagged. People leave traces everywhere online, Mom. They thought no one would notice." Simone's heart ached. Her daughter, just 15, had discovered what she herself never saw. "Look," Aaliyah said, pointing to a map full of red and blue dots. "Red is Dad's location. Blue is Aunt Carissa's. When they overlap, it means they were together. Restaurants, gyms, hotels. See how often it happens? Hundreds of times. The probability that it's random is less than 1,000%." Simone covered her mouth. "Oh my God." "And that's not all," Aaliyah continued quietly. "They liked each other's posts within minutes. They wrote matching captions. They even used the same filters. I have everything documented." Simone sat frozen. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I wanted to be sure first. Grandpa always said data must speak before emotion. Now the data speaks. What will you do with it?" Aaliyah's tone was firm. "Tomorrow, everyone will know the truth." Simone gasped. "Everyone? You can't do that. It'll ruin your father's career." "Mom, he already ruined our family. I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm only showing facts." Simone shook her head, torn between horror and strange admiration. Her daughter was brilliant, but this was terrifying. Aaliyah showed her a document titled "Digital Analysis of Covert Social Connections, a Case Study in Familial Betrayal." 30 pages of graphs, evidence, and conclusions. "I'll send it to Dad's friends, colleagues, and clients," she said. "They deserve to know who he really is." Simone whispered, "Aaliyah, he's still your father. Biological facts don't excuse betrayal." Simone felt tears again. The girl was right, but she was still just a child. "Sleep, Mom," Aaliyah said gently. "Tomorrow the world will know the truth." Simone lay down, but she couldn't rest. She heard the soft clicks of the keyboard all night. Somewhere outside, waves crashed on the shore. By morning, the air was heavy and gray. Simone sat up, dizzy from sleeplessness. Aaliyah was already awake, eyes fixed on the screen. "It's time," she whispered and pressed a key. Emails began to fly. Hundreds, thousands, each carrying the same presentation. To business partners, to family, to friends. Simone covered her face. Aaliyah, what have you done? I delivered justice, the girl said quietly. Digital justice? Simone's phone started to buzz. Ronnie's name appeared on the screen. She stared at it, trembling. Then she declined the call. Another message came. Sim, please talk to me. It's not what it looks like. Aaliyah read it and shook her head. Classic manipulation. More calls. More messages. Outside, the tropical sun rose bright and merciless over the sea. Simone had no idea that by the time night fell, her husband's entire life would be burning down. The truth was out, but Simone didn't yet know how far her daughter's digital justice would go or how many lives it would shatter before the sun set again. By the time the sun rose over Atlanta, the damage had already begun. At that very hour, Ronnie Sterling was sitting in his hotel restaurant, sipping coffee and scrolling through his phone when he noticed dozens of unread messages. His email icon showed over 100 new notifications. At first, he thought it was spam. Then he saw the subject lines, research results by A. Sterling, his name in bold letters. Curiosity turned to horror as he opened the first one. Inside was a detailed presentation with maps, charts, time graphs, and precise data linking his social media activity to that of his wife's sister. The title made his blood run cold. Digital Analysis of Covert Social Connections, a case study in familial betrayal. He scrolled down and saw his own photos, timestamps, locations, even restaurant check-ins, each one matched perfectly with Carissa's. Every detail was exposed. The graphs were beautiful in their precision and deadly in their truth. It was all there. The lies, the secrecy, the double life all turned into evidence by the hands of his 15-year-old daughter. His heart pounded as he read comments below the email. Friends, partners, journalists, even old acquaintances were replying. Ronnie, is this real? How could you do this? Your daughter is brilliant, but what were you thinking? He barely finished reading the first email when his phone rang. It was Sean Garrett, his best friend and business partner. Ronnie hesitated but answered. Sean, I can explain, but Sean interrupted him. Explain? Ronnie, I just got an email from your daughter. The entire city did. She sent a scientific report proving you've been cheating on your wife with her sister. The whole internet is talking about it. Do you realize what this means for us? Ronnie's face went pale. It's just a mistake. She misunderstood. Misunderstood? She has maps, timestamps, everything. It's like an FBI report. She even wrote a summary at the end. That approves a pattern of secret interactions inconsistent with family loyalty. Ronnie, this is a disaster. Our clients are furious. You've built your brand on family values. You've gone on TV saying family is the foundation of everything. Now your daughter proved that was a lie. You've ruined us. Ronnie hung up, his hands shaking. More calls came. His lawyer, his accountant, reporters. Then messages from clients. The Anderson family, who had hired his firm to build a $40 million mansion, sent a cold message. After reviewing the recent public disclosures, we can no longer continue our partnership. One by one, his other clients followed. The Baxter family, the Whitmans, the Harpers. Each email was polite, formal, and final. They didn't want to be associated with him. By noon, half his contracts were canceled. By evening, his reputation was in ruins. He opened social media, and his name was everywhere. Hashtags like hashtag digital justice and hashtag Sterling case were trending. People were sharing screenshots of Aaliyah's analysis. Tech experts praised her skills. 15-year-old proves infidelity through data science, read one headline. When technology serves the truth, said another. On forums, people debated whether Aaliyah was a genius or a danger. But everyone agreed on one thing. Ronnie Sterling's life would never be the same. In Phuket, Simona sat on the edge of her hotel bed, phone buzzing nonstop. She didn't even have to open it to know what was happening. The world was finding out. Her heart was heavy. She didn't feel revenge. She felt exhaustion. Everything she had believed in had turned to dust. Aaliyah, sitting by the window, typed silently. Her face was calm, too calm for what was happening. Aaliyah, Simone said softly, "What have we done?" "We told the truth," Aaliyah said without looking up. "But did we have to tell everyone?" "Mom, if we stayed silent, he would have gone on lying. Now no one can hide behind nice words anymore." Simone had no answer. She stared out at the sea, waves crashing softly. Somewhere out there, her husband's career was sinking like a stone. In Atlanta, Ronnie's office was chaos. Employees gathered in small groups, whispering. Some tried not to meet his eyes. The receptionist avoided him. Sean walked into his office, eyes full of disappointment. "Ronnie, we can't keep going like this. The board voted. We're suspending operations until further notice." "What?" "You can't. We have to. You were the face of the company. Now you're poison. Every call I get starts with your daughter's name." Ronnie sank into his chair, staring at his wedding photo on the desk. Simone's smile looked frozen now, unreal. "It was just one mistake," he whispered. "One mistake?" Sean said bitterly. "Ronnie, you didn't just cheat on your wife. You cheated on your image, your brand, your own message. Family was your selling point. And your 15-year-old daughter just proved you don't practice what you preach. That's not a mistake. That's self-destruction." When Sean left, Ronnie buried his face in his hands. Outside, reporters were already gathering. The first article appeared within hours. Builder of family homes exposed by daughter's data report. His phone kept ringing until he threw it against the wall. Meanwhile, Carissa sat in her apartment scrolling through her messages. Her inbox was full of shame. Old friends wrote, "How could you betray your sister?" Others sent screenshots of Aaliyah's report. Some of her coworkers stopped replying to her messages. Her boss at the car dealership called her in. "Carissa," he said with a grim face, holding a printed copy of Aaliyah's presentation, "this is unacceptable. We sell family cars. Our customers trust us. I can't have your name associated with this scandal. I'm sorry." He handed her the final paycheck. Carissa walked out in tears, covering her face from cameras outside. The story had spread everywhere. On Facebook, people shared memes, "Don't cheat if your daughter's a data scientist." Others joked, "Big data, big karma." Carissa's face was in half of them. Ronnie spent the night drinking. His phone buzzed again, a call from his mother. He didn't answer. Then came a message from Simone, "Please stop calling. We're done." That single line broke him more than all the public shame combined. The next morning, he met with his lawyer, who tried to sound professional. "Ronnie, the evidence your daughter collected is all from public sources. Legally, it's solid. It'll hold in court." "So she can use it against me?" "Yes. And not just in court. In the court of public opinion, you're already guilty." "Is there anything we can do?" "Damage control. Public apology, but you'll never restore what you lost." By noon, the story reached national news networks. CNN ran a segment titled "Digital Detective Daughter Exposes Father's Secret Life." The anchor described Aaliyah as a genius teen using data analysis for justice. Tech experts praised her method. One professor from Georgia Tech said, "This report could be published in a scientific journal." Another added, "It's flawless. No hacking, no privacy breach, just intelligent use of public information." Ronnie watched in disbelief as his downfall became a lesson in ethics for the entire country. Even his competitors praised Aaliyah's skill. He wanted to hate her, but deep inside he felt a twisted kind of pride. She really was brilliant. His business collapsed within 48 hours. Contracts canceled. Investors pulled out. Banks froze accounts. He tried to reach Simone again, but she had blocked his number. Aaliyah's message had been final. Data collected. Analysis complete. Results will be published at 8 a.m. The words replayed in his head like a nightmare. In Phuket, Aaliyah scrolled through the news calmly. "It's working," she said. Simone looked at her, eyes full of sorrow. "Working? You make it sound like a project." "It is a project, Mom. A justice project." Simone took her daughter's hand. Aaliyah, revenge never heals. It only burns what's left. Aaliyah looked down. Then maybe burning is the only way to clean what's dirty. By the third day, the scandal had reached every corner of social media. Journalists camped outside Ronnie's office and home. Bloggers made videos explaining Aaliyah's algorithms. Her presentation spread like wildfire. Universities asked for permission to use it as an educational case study. MIT professors called it a landmark in digital ethics. Simone's phone rang constantly. Reporters wanted interviews. "We want to hear the mother's side," they said. She refused them all. She didn't want fame from her pain. She only wanted peace. In Atlanta, Ronnie was drowning. His once busy office stood empty. Bills piled up. Employees left one by one. He sat alone at his desk, staring at the blank wall. Then he heard laughter outside, two construction workers joking. That's the guy whose kid exposed him online. He wanted to scream, but instead he just sat still. Carissa's life wasn't better. She tried to find another job, but failed. Every interview ended with the same question: "Aren't you the woman from that viral report?" Shame followed her everywhere. Her friends stopped answering her calls. Even family avoided her. Her mother refused to speak to her. Simone's mother called her crying. "How could your sister do this to you? And your daughter, she's so smart, but this is too much." Simone said quietly, "Mom, maybe it's what needed to happen." At night, Simone walked along the beach in silence. Aaliyah followed, barefoot in the sand. "Do you regret it, Mom?" she asked. Simone looked at the stars. "I regret trusting the wrong people. Not you." Back in Atlanta, Ronnie's last client canceled. His business partner sold his share and walked away. The company Sterling and Associates, once a symbol of luxury and trust, shut its doors. The website disappeared. The logo was replaced by a message closed indefinitely. Ronnie became the man everyone whispered about, but no one pitied. His story became a warning that secrets in the digital age don't stay buried. His name became a punchline on talk shows. "If you're going to cheat," one comedian joked, "make sure your kid doesn't know Python." The audience laughed. Ronnie watched that clip one night on TV and felt like the world was laughing directly at him. Days turned into weeks. His phone stopped ringing. Friends stopped visiting. Even Carissa stopped calling. They had started blaming each other for everything. "You were the one who wanted the trip to Thailand," she yelled once over the phone. "And you were the one who posted every photo," he yelled back. It was over. Their relationship had been built on lies, and lies couldn't survive exposure. One morning, Ronnie looked at his reflection in the mirror and didn't recognize the man staring back. He had aged 10 years in 2 months. Dark circles, gray hair, eyes empty. He whispered, "How did I lose everything?" But he already knew the answer. Meanwhile, Aaliyah's report had become famous in academic circles. Professors studied her methods. Tech conferences discussed her ethical approach. Some praised her as a hero. Others said she went too far. But Aaliyah stayed silent. She didn't post or comment. She didn't need to. The facts spoke for themselves. Simone began to receive messages of support from women around the country. "Your daughter inspired me," one wrote. "She gave me courage to leave my cheating husband." Another said, "You raised a genius." Simone read them with mixed feelings, pride and sadness intertwined. In Atlanta, Ronnie finally packed his things and left his empty office. He drove past the half-built mansions that once symbolized his success. Now they were ghost houses, unfinished dreams. He stopped his car on a hill overlooking the city and sat there for hours, watching the skyline fade into night. He realized that in the end, Aaliyah hadn't destroyed him. He had done it himself, one lie at a time. Her report had only revealed what he had already built, a house with no foundation. In Phuket, Simone finally decided to go home. "Mom," Aaliyah said as they packed, "are you angry at me?" Simone paused. "No, sweetheart. You showed me the truth. But remember this, truth without mercy can hurt as much as lies." Aaliyah nodded but said nothing. When they boarded the plane back to Atlanta, Simone looked out the window at the endless blue sky. She didn't know what waited for them. But she knew one thing, the old life was gone forever. As they landed, her phone filled with new messages, reporters, lawyers, friends. Aaliyah's report had become international news. A photo of her daughter holding a laptop was on magazine covers. "The girl who brought justice through data," the headline said. Simone turned off her phone. She wanted no fame, no noise, only silence. In the distance, clouds covered the city like a gray blanket. Somewhere under those clouds, Ronnie was trying to pick up what was left of his life. He sat in a cheap motel, watching the news replay his downfall. His eyes were tired, but for the first time, he didn't feel anger. He felt something else, understanding. He whispered to himself she was right. Data doesn't lie. Outside, rain began to fall. The same city that had once cheered his success now turned away. The same people who had praised his family values now admired his daughter for exposing him. And as the rain hit the window, Ronnie realized that the empire he had built on words had crumbled under the weight of truth. He closed his eyes and wished, for the first time, that he had never lied to the woman who truly loved him. But the world had already moved on. For Ronnie Sterling, however, every day that followed felt like a punishment that never ended. The scandal had swallowed him whole. His name, once respected, had become a warning. People no longer said it with admiration, but with mockery. The mighty builder of family homes had destroyed his own family, and the world refused to let him forget. He left Atlanta under a storm of shame. News vans parked outside his gated home for days. Reporters shouted questions from the sidewalks, flashing cameras through his windows. The once proud white mansion stood silent, its gates locked, its garden untrimmed. Ronnie tried to leave unnoticed one early morning, stuffing his clothes into a single suitcase, but a neighbor spotted him. By noon, the photo of him dragging a suitcase into a taxi appeared online under the caption, "The Fall of the Perfect Husband." He checked into a cheap motel on the outskirts of the city, the kind of place he used to drive past without a second glance. The wallpaper was peeling, and the air smelled of cigarettes. He sat on the bed and stared at the cracked ceiling. His phone buzzed every few minutes with new messages, but they weren't from friends. They were from journalists, strangers, and people who wanted to gloat. "Serves you right. Your daughter is a hero. You got what you deserved." Ronnie stopped reading after the first dozen. He threw the phone into the drawer, but the buzzing kept echoing in his mind. In the following weeks, he tried to get back to work, but no one would hire him. His name was toxic. Clients had canceled every contract, investors had withdrawn their money, and banks refused to lend him a cent. He visited one of his old partners, hoping for a favor, but the man wouldn't even let him pass the lobby. "I can't be seen with you, Ronnie," he said quietly. "It's not personal, it's business. Your daughter made sure everyone knows who you are." Everywhere he went, people recognized him. Some whispered behind his back, others laughed openly. Once, at a small grocery store, a man shouted, "Hey, builder of lies, how's the family foundation now?" The crowd chuckled, and Ronnie left without buying anything. He felt their eyes on him as he walked away. At night, he drank. At first just a little, then more each day. Whiskey dulled the noise in his head, but it also made him forget how to care. He spent hours staring at his reflection in the bathroom mirror, wondering how he had turned into the kind of man he used to despise. His face looked older, harder. The sparkle in his eyes was gone. He whispered to himself, "It's all her fault," but deep down he knew that wasn't true. Carissa called him once after weeks of silence. Her voice trembled. "Ronnie, I can't sleep. People recognize me everywhere. I lost my job. My friends won't talk to me. My landlord wants me out because of the media. What are we going to do?" Ronnie laughed bitterly. You were supposed to be the smart one. You said no one would ever know. You said it would be our secret." Carissa cried. "Don't blame me. You posted those pictures. You wrote those comments. You're the one who liked my posts. And you're the one who couldn't stop tagging restaurants. You wanted attention. Well, now you've got it." The line went silent for a moment, then she whispered, "I hate you," and hung up. That was the last time they spoke. Carissa's life collapsed faster than Ronnie's. She tried to find new work, but every company that searched her name found the scandal. Some rejected her politely, others cruelly. "We can't have someone with that reputation," one manager said. She walked home crying, passing by people who stared at her with recognition. One day, she saw her own face on a meme that read, "When your niece is smarter than your conscience." The comments were filled with laughter. She stopped leaving her apartment. She closed her curtains, deleted her social media, and sat for hours in silence. Her phone barely rang except for calls from debt collectors. Even her family avoided her. Her mother's voice on the phone was cold. "You betrayed your sister. You ruined your name. Don't call me until you fix your life." Ronnie's mother wasn't any kinder. "I raised you better," she told him during their last call. "I don't even know who you are anymore." He hung up and stared at the empty bottle beside him. The people he had once loved now spoke to him like a stranger. Weeks turned into months. The news cycle slowed, but the internet never forgot. Aaliyah's analysis remained online, reposted, studied, praised. Ronnie had become a permanent example in articles about digital transparency. Every time a journalist wrote about online ethics, his name appeared. He was no longer a person. He was a cautionary tale. Money ran out fast. He sold his car, his watch, and the last of his belongings to pay the bills. The luxury that had surrounded him for years vanished piece by piece. The Rolex he once dreamed of owning was now gone, sold to a pawn shop for a fraction of its value. He thought about how Simone had bought him that same watch for his birthday, the one he had never received. He imagined her still holding it in its box, a gift that would never be given. He moved from motel to motel, each one worse than the last. The rooms grew smaller, the beds harder. He took a job at a construction site under a false name, doing manual labor for minimum wage. The first day, when he picked up a shovel, his hand shook. The foreman looked at him and said, "You're new. Don't mess up." Ronnie nodded silently. No one there knew who he was. For the first time in his life, he felt invisible, and it was both a relief and a curse. He spent his lunch breaks sitting alone, watching younger workers joke and laugh. Once, one of them mentioned Alia's story. "You heard about that girl who exposed her dad?" "Wild stuff. Smart kid." Ronnie froze, keeping his head down. The worker continued, "Serves the guy right, though. You cheat, you pay." Ronnie didn't speak. He finished his sandwich and left early that day. At night, he lay on his narrow bed, haunted by memories. The laughter of Aaliyah as a child, Simone's voice calling him for dinner, the sound of their house filled with warmth. Now those sounds existed only in his head, like echoes from another life. He tried to call Simone again once, but the number was still blocked. He left a message anyway. "Sim, I know you hate me, but please tell Aaliyah I'm proud of her. She's incredible. She's everything I'm not." He never got a reply. Meanwhile, Carissa's isolation deepened. She couldn't bear to face people anymore. Her money ran out and eviction notices piled up. Desperate, she called Simone one evening crying, "Sim, please, I need help. I have nowhere to go." Simone listened in silence. "Carissa," she said softly, "I don't have anything to say to you. You destroyed my trust. I can't help you." "But I'm your sister," Carissa sobbed. "You stopped being my sister when you chose him," Simone said, and hung up. Carissa collapsed to the floor, shaking. The loneliness was unbearable. She thought about ending it all but couldn't find the courage. She sat there, surrounded by silence, realizing that the man she had betrayed her family for had also abandoned her. Ronnie, too, was at his breaking point. The more he tried to fix his life, the worse it became. His body ached from work. His mind was foggy from exhaustion and regret. One evening, after another long shift, he stopped by a small bar near the construction site. The bartender, an old man with kind eyes, poured him a drink. "Rough day?" he asked. Ronnie nodded. "Rough life," he muttered. The bartender chuckled softly. "It can't be that bad." Ronnie gave a bitter smile. "You'd be surprised." He didn't explain who he was. He didn't want to. When he stumbled back to his motel, he saw a message waiting in his email. It was from an unknown address, but the subject line made his heart stop. Case study update, Sterling Family Educational Impact. He opened it, and there it was, a link to a university lecture. The professor was discussing Aaliyah's report. Her face appeared on the projector screen, her voice calm and confident. This analysis shows that technology can reveal truth without invading privacy. We used only public data. The results are undeniable. The students applauded. Ronnie closed his laptop and pressed his forehead against it. Tears slid down his face. His daughter had become famous, but not for something he could be proud of. She had become famous for exposing him. Carissa's health began to fail. Stress consumed her. She lost weight, stopped sleeping, and barely ate. Neighbors heard her crying through the walls but didn't intervene. She had become that woman everyone whispered about. Parents pointed her out to their kids as a warning. That's what happens when you betray your family, they'd say. Ronnie's body broke under the strain of manual work. His hands were full of blisters, his back hurt constantly, and his eyes looked hollow. One morning, the foreman shouted at him for working too slowly. "You're too old for this job," he said. Ronnie didn't argue. He just nodded and kept shoveling. The sun burned his neck, sweat poured down his face, and his mind kept repeating one thought: this is what I deserve. Weeks later, he received his final paycheck. The company was cutting costs. "Sorry, man," the foreman said, patting him on the shoulder. "Nothing personal." Ronnie smiled weakly. "It never is." He walked out of the site, unsure where to go. The city felt bigger than ever. He passed by a bookstore and stopped when he saw a newspaper headline in the window: Young Genius. Wins Award for Ethical Data Science, Aaliyah Sterling. Her photo was there again, smiling proudly. The article described how her analysis had inspired a national discussion about truth and technology. The caption under the picture read, "Justice Through Data." Ronnie stood there for a long time, staring at the image. Then he whispered, "You won, sweetheart. You really did." He turned away, but a strange calm settled over him. For the first time, he stopped blaming others. He knew this was the end of the road he had paved himself. Carissa, meanwhile, faced eviction. Her landlord threw her belongings into the hallway. She begged for more time, but he refused. "I gave you 3 chances," he said. "Get out." She gathered her things into a suitcase and left, walking aimlessly through the rain. No one opened their doors to her. By nightfall, she sat on a park bench, shivering, her suitcase beside her. The world had forgotten her too. Ronnie wandered the streets of Jacksonville, where he had moved in search of anonymity. He found a small construction job again, this time as a part-time laborer. The pay barely covered rent. Every day was the same: work, eat, drink, sleep, repeat. But sleep never brought rest. His dreams were filled with Simone's face, Aaliyah's voice, and Carissa's tears. He stopped watching the news. Every time he saw his name, it hurt. But one night, while flipping channels, he saw Aaliyah again, older now, speaking at a conference. "Truth is not cruelty," she said. "It's light, and sometimes light burns." The audience clapped. Ronnie turned off the TV and sat in the dark, whispering to himself, "Yes, it burns." His health worsened. Years of stress, alcohol, and labor took their toll. He developed a persistent cough that wouldn't go away. He ignored it at first, then grew too weak to work. His landlord began leaving notes on his door. Pay or leave. Ronnie sold his last possessions, his tools, his coat, even his wedding ring, just to survive. The irony was cruel. The man who once built homes for others now couldn't afford a roof of his own. Carissa ended up in a shelter, her once beautiful hair cut short, her clothes worn and dull. She avoided mirrors. When she looked at herself, she saw not a woman but a ghost of her former life. At night, she heard whispers from other women in the shelter. "That's her," they said. "The one from the story." Carissa buried her face in her hands. Both she and Ronnie lived like shadows. The world they had once ruled through charm and beauty had spat them out. Every lie they told had come back as a curse. Every secret had turned into a scar. One cold evening, Ronnie sat outside the motel, coughing, watching the sunset. The orange light reminded him of Simone's laughter, of dinners on their terrace, of the family he had destroyed. He thought of calling Aaliyah again, but stopped himself. What could he say? He had already said too much, too late. He whispered into the wind, "I'm sorry." No one heard him. Far away in another city, Carissa sat by a window in the shelter, holding a small photo, an old picture of her and Simone as children. Her tears fell on it. "I wish I could go back," she whispered. But time never goes backward. That night, Ronnie dreamed of Aaliyah standing in front of him, older, calm, surrounded by light. "You taught me the cost of lies," she said. He reached out, but she vanished. He woke up crying, his pillow wet with tears. The next morning, he packed his few things and walked toward the bus station. He didn't know where he was going, only that he needed to keep moving. The bus pulled away, leaving the city behind. Outside the window, the sun was rising, but Ronnie's eyes stayed on the horizon, searching for something that no longer existed: forgiveness. Simone and Aaliyah had left behind everything they once knew, but the shadows of their past still followed them, no matter how far they traveled. The world they once had, filled with promises of a bright future, had crumbled into a series of bitter memories. Yet, in their quiet new home in Munich, surrounded by unfamiliar streets and the peaceful hum of a different life, they began to rebuild slowly, carefully, with every step measured and every breath a reminder of what they had lost. The first few weeks were the hardest. There was the constant weight of grief that hung over them like an invisible cloak. Simone had left everything she had ever known: the life, the marriage, the home, and in its place, she now had only memories of betrayal and loss. She would wake up in the quiet mornings, unsure for a moment where she was, and then the reality would settle in. Her old life in Atlanta, the warmth of her home, her love for Ronnie, seemed like a distant dream. And in some ways, it felt better that way, because to keep those memories close would have meant keeping the pain close too. Aaliyah was still adjusting, though she never showed it. At just 15, she had already seen too much of the ugliness of the world. She had become wiser, perhaps too wise for her years. Simone noticed how her daughter had stopped asking for things like toys or small comforts, and instead, she focused on work, programming, data analysis, studying every language and skill she could get her hands on. Simone wasn't sure whether Aaliyah was trying to keep herself busy to avoid the memories, or if she genuinely found solace in the world of numbers and codes. On some evenings, after long days of study and work, Aaliyah would sit next to her mother in their small, cozy living room. There was no TV, no noise, just the sound of the rain pattering softly against the window. They would share dinner, not much, usually simple food Simone prepared herself, something that didn't need too much effort. There was a kind of comfort in this routine, the simplicity of it. The silence between them was never awkward. It was filled with the weight of shared experience, a bond that neither of them needed to explain. "Mom, do you ever miss it?" Aaliyah asked one night as they sat at the table. Simone looked up from her plate, her mind momentarily drifting back to Atlanta. It had been weeks since she left, and yet the memories were still fresh. "Do I miss it?" she echoed softly, thinking about the life they had before the betrayal, before the digital storm that changed everything. She glanced at Aaliyah, her eyes softening. "I miss the idea of it," she said slowly. "But I don't miss the pain. I miss the lies." Aaliyah didn't respond right away. She just stared at her plate, her fingers tapping lightly on the edge. "I think I miss who we used to be," she said quietly. "When everything felt like it was right." Simone nodded, understanding. They had been a family once whole and full of love. But now, that family was shattered, and they were left to piece together the fragments of who they once were. But there was also something else there, something neither of them could name. A chance for a new beginning. And it wasn't as simple as just packing up and moving to another country. It wasn't just about leaving behind the past. It was about finding themselves again, piece by piece. It was about stepping out of the shadows of betrayal and into the light of their own potential. In Germany, they lived in a small, quiet apartment in the city. The apartment wasn't much, but it was theirs. The walls were bare, the furniture simple. Simone's had no desire to fill the space with unnecessary things. It wasn't the kind of home she had imagined for herself, but it was a place where she could breathe without feeling haunted by the ghosts of the past. Simone began working part-time at a local bookstore, translating books and articles for German tourists who visited. The work wasn't glamorous, but it allowed her to meet new people and feel a sense of purpose again. She learned to speak German more fluently with each passing day, her accent smoothing out, the words rolling off her tongue with more ease. The neighbors were kind, if not a little reserved. They offered warm smiles, and every now and then, Simone would join them for coffee at a local cafe. It was small gestures like these that helped her find a sense of belonging in this strange new land. Aaliyah, on the other hand, had thrown herself into her studies. She enrolled in a local school, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. It was clear that she had an almost unnatural gift for technology. She spent her afternoons coding, studying algorithms, and building small projects. Her teachers were amazed at her abilities. They had never seen a student so young with such a mastery of data analysis and programming. The weeks passed by in a blur of work, study, and small victories. Simone and Elia found solace in their routines, though the shadow of the past was always there, lurking in the background. Simone sometimes felt a pang of guilt. Was she doing enough for her daughter? Was this the life Aaliyah deserved? But then she would see her daughter's face, focused and calm, and she knew that this was the right path. They were both healing, but healing took time. One evening, as the two of them sat on the balcony, watching the sun set behind the distant hills, Simone turned to Aaliyah and asked, "Do you think we'll ever be whole again?" Aaliyah didn't answer right away. She just stared out at the fading light, her eyes distant. Then, after a long pause, she finally spoke. "I think we are whole, just not in the way we used to be." Simone smiled softly, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. Her daughter's words were simple, but they held a truth that Simone hadn't been able to see before. They were whole, not perfect, not untouched by the scars of the past, but whole in a way that mattered. The next morning, as Simone prepared for another day of work, Aaliyah sat at her desk, typing away at her computer. She had started a new project, a system that would analyze people's compatibility, not based on superficial questions, but on deep-rooted values and goals. She was determined to make sure that no one else would suffer as they had. She had realized over the past few weeks that her gift for data analysis could be used for something more than just uncovering secrets. It could be used to help people to prevent the kind of destruction that had torn her family apart. She had already started creating a prototype for an app that would help couples navigate their relationships before they fell apart. It would help them understand each other's values and goals, things that couldn't be hidden behind a smile or a pretty facade. She called it True Match, a name that seemed to embody everything she had learned. The system wouldn't just match people on surface-level interests, but on the things that truly matter: trust, loyalty, and understanding. Simone watched her daughter from the doorway, a sense of pride swelling in her chest. This girl, this brilliant, strong, and determined girl, was going to change the world. And maybe, just maybe, she had already begun. Life in Munich was far from perfect. There were still moments when Simone would wake up in the middle of the night, her heart racing as the memories of the past came rushing back. But then she would see Aaliyah, focused and determined, and she would remind herself that they had made it through the worst. They had survived the storm, and now they were building something new, something that could never be taken away. And perhaps that was the greatest gift of all. But even as they began to move forward, a part of Simone knew that the past could never truly be erased. Ronnie and Carissa's betrayal would always be a scar on their hearts. But the future, Lilia's future, their future, was something that no one could take away. And so, as they moved through their new life, Simone held on to the hope that one day they would be able to look back not just with pain, but with understanding. Because sometimes it takes losing everything to truly find what matters most. But even as they found their new beginning, the past wasn't done with them yet. As Alia's project began to take shape, something unexpected was on the horizon, something that would challenge everything they had built. Would it be the key to their future? Or would it shatter the fragile piece they had so carefully constructed? Simone and Aaliyah had built something new, but the weight of their past lingered, a constant presence they couldn't escape. Aaliyah's app, True Match, had begun to gain attention. What started as a simple project to help people navigate relationships was now something more, a tool that could prevent the pain she and her mother had endured. It was being tested by universities, spoken about in tech forums, and even used in a few pilot programs for couples therapy. It seemed like the world was beginning to recognize her brilliance, the very thing Ronnie had once seen as a weakness. Yet despite the success, the shadows of the past crept in, as they always did. The emails started arriving one morning, just as Simone had begun her routine. She had just finished preparing breakfast, the aroma of fresh bread filling the kitchen, when her phone buzzed on the table. The message was from an unfamiliar address, the subject line simple yet chilling, a message from Ronnie. Simone hesitated. She hadn't heard from him in months, hadn't wanted to hear from him. The last time they spoke, his voice was nothing more than a hollow echo of what it once was. He had tried to apologize, to justify, to explain, but none of it mattered. She had blocked his number, deleted every trace of his existence from her phone. The betrayal was too much, the lies too deep. But now this message. With a heavy sigh, Simone opened it. "Simone, I know you've moved on. I know this is the last thing you want to hear, but I'm asking for a chance to explain what happened, how it happened, and what I've learned in all this time. Please, just one conversation." The message was short, the words hollow and pleading. Simone stared at it for a long time, the weight of the past pressing down on her chest. She knew what it meant to be betrayed. She had lived it. But the thought of facing him again, hearing his voice, felt like a step backward. She didn't want to go there. She didn't want to give him the satisfaction of knowing that even after everything, she was still haunted by the memory of who he used to be. But there was something else too, a small, quiet part of her that wondered if she owed him something. For 18 years she had trusted him, loved him. Could that trust be restored? Could there be redemption for him, or was this just another desperate attempt to justify the unforgivable? Aaliyah entered the room just as Simone was about to delete the message without responding. Her daughter's presence was a constant source of strength for Simone, but this moment, this decision, seemed impossible to navigate alone. "Who's that from, Mom?" Aaliyah asked, her voice soft, but Simone could hear the edge of curiosity beneath the calm tone. Simone stared at the phone for a moment longer before looking up at her daughter. "It's from your father," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Aaliyah's face didn't change. She had grown accustomed to hearing about her father in these casual ways. But Simone could see the flicker of something in her daughter's eyes, an emotion too complicated to name. Simone knew Aaliyah had been through more than anyone should have to face at such a young age. She had been the one to expose the truth, the one who had watched their world collapse, and yet she was still standing tall, stronger than anyone Simone had ever known. "Are you going to answer?" Aaliyah asked after a long pause. Simone shook her head. "No, I don't think there's anything left to say." Aaliyah nodded, turning away from the table to gather her things. "I understand, Mom, but don't let him keep you in the past. He can't be a part of our future." The words stung, but they were true. Simone knew that. And yet, as Aaliyah left the room, she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't finished. She had moved on, yes, but the past had a way of pulling people back into its grasp when they least expected it. That evening, Simone sat at her desk, her thoughts racing. Aaliyah was in her room, immersed in her work, her face lit by the glow of her laptop screen. The silence in the apartment was thick, a quiet that had become comfortable, but never truly peaceful. Simone looked at the phone again, then put it down, choosing not to respond. She couldn't bring herself to answer. What was there to say, anyway? Could she even trust his words? And if she did, what would it mean for the life she had worked so hard to build? Days passed. Aaliyah's work on True Match continued to grow, and with each passing day, it seemed like her daughter's future was brightening. Simone watched with a sense of pride as Aaliyah poured herself into her project, determined to help others avoid the mistakes they had made. It was inspiring in a way to see her daughter's resilience, her ability to take the darkness of their past and turn it into something meaningful. But the truth was, no matter how much time passed, Simone still carried the weight of the past. She saw it in the quiet moments when Aaliyah would look at her with that knowing gaze, as if silently asking how she was holding up. She saw it in the way she would close herself off from the world, hiding her pain behind the facade of a perfect life. Simone knew that healing took time, but the past never truly disappeared. It lingered in the corners, in the unanswered questions, in the nights when her thoughts would wander back to the life she had once built and the man who had shattered it all. Then one evening, as they sat in their small living room, the phone buzzed again. It was the same message, but this time it was different. It wasn't a plea for understanding, but a final attempt to reach out. Simone hesitated, then opened it. "Simone, I've learned so much in the time I've been away. I've come to understand the gravity of what I did, how deeply I hurt you. I'm not asking for forgiveness, but I'm asking for closure. Please, let me speak to you one last time, for the sake of what we once had." The words felt like a knife twisting in her heart, but this time something in Simone shifted. Maybe it was the weight of everything they had endured, or maybe it was the realization that they could never truly move on without addressing the ghosts of their past. She didn't respond immediately, but something inside her stirred. Maybe it wasn't about forgiving him. Maybe it was about finding peace for herself, a peace that had eluded her for so long. Aaliyah entered the room just then, her eyes lighting up with a question in her gaze. "Who was it this time, Mom?" Simone paused, the phone still in her hand. "Your father." Aaliyah's expression softened, but there was no anger, no bitterness, only an understanding that ran deeper than words could express. "What did he say?" "He says he wants closure," Simone replied, her voice steady, though her hands trembled slightly. "He wants to explain." Aaliyah was silent for a moment, then spoke softly. "You don't owe him anything, Mom. But if you think this will help you heal, then maybe you should talk to him." Simone looked at her daughter, who had grown into someone so much stronger than she had ever imagined. Her words cut through the doubt in Simone's heart, and for the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe closure wasn't about the past. It was about letting go and moving forward. The next morning, Simone sat down with the phone in her hands. She stared at the screen, reading Ronnie's message one last time. With a deep breath, she typed her response, the words flowing slowly but deliberately. "You were once a part of my life, and I won't erase that. But we cannot go back. I have moved forward, and I'm at peace with that. Goodbye, Ronnie." She hit send, the weight lifting from her chest as she placed the phone down on the table. She didn't need to hear any more. The past had been laid to rest. It was time to focus on the future. Simone turned to Aaliyah, who was sitting at the kitchen table, already working on her next project. A small smile crept onto Simone's face as she watched her daughter. The strength she saw in Aaliyah was the foundation of their new life. Together, they had found a way to heal, to start over. As Simone and Aaliyah stood at the edge of their new beginning, they knew the road ahead wouldn't always be smooth. There would be new challenges, more obstacles to overcome, and moments when the past would try to creep back in. But they had learned something crucial. No matter what life threw at them, they had the strength to face it together. They had rebuilt themselves from the ashes of their past, and now they could move forward with their heads held high. The journey of healing, of rediscovery, of forgiveness, it wasn't easy, but it was theirs to make. Simone and Aaliyah had learned that life could be shattered, but it could also be pieced back together. And they didn't need the past to define who they were. They were free to create their future on their terms. So, as the world outside continued to turn as time passed and memories faded, one thing remained clear. Simone and Aaliyah would never stop growing, never stop moving forward. And for the first time in years, they both truly believed that everything would be okay. Thank you so much for watching today's story. I hope it resonated with you and maybe even gave you a little inspiration. Simone and Aaliyah's journey shows us that no matter how much we go through, there's always a way forward and there's always hope in starting fresh. If you enjoyed this story and would like to hear more like it, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our upcoming stories. We've got plenty more coming your way, and I'd love for you to be a part of our community. Comment below and let me know what part of Simone and Aaliyah's journey touched you the most. Where are you watching from? I love reading your comments, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Thank you again for your support. It means the world. See you in the next story. With love and respect.